whoever is holding the standard up that private communication should get you fired from your job, a private conversation you had every reason to believe would stay private, I think anybody who makes that public should be fired immediately and should be labeled a racist if the message was racist, should be labeled a troublemaker if the message causes trouble, etc. Here's a new set of social standards I would like to promote. As you know, I've said that we need to add two sets of, let's say, etiquette or manners that were not necessary in prior generations. One of them is that you should have 48 hours to apologize or criticize or clarify if you get in trouble for something you did. So everybody gets 48 hours to say, oh, I didn't mean that, or clarify it or apologize, whatever, and then just accept it and move on. And the other is my 20-year rule that says if somebody comes up with your, I don't know, high school yearbook and it's more than 20 years ago, it just doesn't matter. That we're all so different 20 years later that we shouldn't penalize anybody for anything they did 20 years ago, unless it was murder or some kind of terrible thing like that. But here's another one I'm going to add to the list. And it comes because there's a New Hampshire police chief refused to reinstate an officer who was fired over racist text messages. So the police officer is accused, and credibly, obviously, for sending some text messages to his wife, only to his wife, that had some unstated offensive things that sounded racist to the people who saw the messages. Now, I say that the new rule should be this: anything that you said privately cannot be used against you publicly in terms of making you look like a bad person. If it's in the commission of a crime, then yeah. I mean, if your text messages, show you're guilty of a crime, that's different. But if it's a thought crime, something that would exist only in your head, and you've only communicated it to someone who you have a reasonable expectation of confidentiality, let's say a spouse. If you have a private message to a spouse or lover, and somebody decides to make that public, or even to talk about it, in this case, I don't know if they know the details, but the public is talking about it, as if they know what these messages are about. I would say that the rule should be whoever took the message to the public is responsible for the content. So, if there were racist messages between one police officer and a spouse, the rule would be that whoever took that to the public is the racist. They're the racist. Because 100% of the public have unpleasant private thoughts. There's no exception to that. Do you think that if you knew everybody's private thoughts, do you think you'd be happy with all of them? I don't think so. The reason that we talk differently in private than we do in public is that it is universally recognized that when you're talking in public, you're having an impact on the public. And so, if you're going to be a good person in society, you don't want to have bad impacts on strangers in the public. Of course. So of course we have a different standard for public stuff, but private stuff? Are you okay with private conversations between spouses becoming a reason for you to get fired? I say whoever is holding this up should be fired. Whoever is holding the standard up that private communication should get you fired from your job, a private conversation you had every reason to believe would stay private, I think anybody who makes that public should be fired immediately and should be labeled a racist if the message was racist, should be labeled a troublemaker if the message causes trouble, etc. So this is the standard I am going to pursue. Anytime that I see anybody outed for a private conversation, don't care what the content is. Do not care what the content is whatsoever. I do care what they do in public. I do care what they do on their job. But I don't care what they think. As soon as we allow that standard is okay, then it's just nothing but problems. Every one of you has got a big problem because you've all said things to people you trust that you didn't think would be appropriate in public.